we shouldn't be complaining. We're overpaid. Like, we make a lot of money. And there's high risk and high reward. And I've tried to tell some of the guys on the road in April, like, hold up now. Like, we've been doing pretty good. I was supposed to be a high school gym teacher and coach.
All right, welcome into the Maize and Blue Review. I tried a little something different just at the last second. We've got Brandon Justice, who I'm thinking that we might be able to hear. I might have to call up on his cell. Let's just take a little listen to Brandon Justice. How are you, Brandon?
I'm good. How you doing?
Look at that.
It worked.
It was me at the last second. I said, what about this button right here? Let me go try that one. And it worked, which is great. It's great to see you. And it's great to have you on here. I know you've been out and about. You've been working hard. This is your kind of weather. This is your season, right?
Yes. It's also my season to figure out how to set up a mic on the screen still. Definitely my season. It's the best time of the year. I think it's like unequivocal. That's just me. I love baseball season. I love baseball weather. I like that part of spring where we kind of get a little bit of a preview as to what summer's going to feel like. And I feel like that's what yesterday was. So I'm hoping that continues. This week looks great in the forecasts. And I'm loving it because I think we've discussed this before on here. I mean, I hate the cold. There's probably not like an appropriate word to describe how I handle the cold, but people don't like how I handle the cold. Like our other coaches think I'm a little bit of a wuss with the cold, which is fair. I just hate it. And I always have. So I am very happy that it's warm, Dennis.
Well, you and I have that in common. If somebody wanted to say, hey, you are a fair weather fan, Fithian, I would say that's correct. I used to have a 70-degree threshold to go to a baseball game. I said I would not go. It is lowered over the years I have gone. And that's the exception if it's postseason. It's different. But just a regular season baseball game, I used to say I wouldn't go unless it was 70 degrees. I've lowered that. But I am one that is a fair weather fan. Well, we got lots to talk about here, and we've got some football, we've got some baseball, and we've got some basketball as well to get to. But before we get to anything, Brandon, let me tell you about our new sponsor. Hey, folks, Dennis Fithian, and support for the Maize and Blue Review is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code TMBR at manscaped.com. If you've ever heard someone ask if the curtains match the rug, in this case, you take a look at my head there in the picture. Yes, it does. So there you go. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code TMBR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use that code TMBR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. All right, football. Let's start right there. And I didn't see Rivals confirm this, but so I'm going to put it into the rumor category. But Michigan has a linebacker commitment out of Tallahassee, Florida, who may be interested in taking some visits, including Michigan. But this is, as it sits right now, Brandon, one of, if not the guy, if you're looking towards Michigan's football class of this upcoming year. So how would you view this potential news that Wilson may be taking some visits to Georgia and Florida?
Yeah, I think it's not a shock that he's going to take visits. I mean, this is a high-profile guy. He's a Rivals 100 guy. And when he committed, and still to this day, Raylen Wilson is seen as a guy that could put Michigan over that quote-unquote hump that we talk about athletically, defensively. Because I think they've caught up in that regard offensively, like we saw last year. I know their style last year was smash mouth, run the damn ball, blah, blah, blah. Like, I get all of that. But athletically, they can square up offensively for the most part, right? Defensively, we saw last year against Georgia, they were just getting out. There was Josh Ross, who's I think could be a guy that plugs in for an NFL team in certain situations, but couldn't really handle the speed that Georgia brought, right? So Raylen Wilson was kind of seen as a guy that might be able to get them there. And I know that they have some guys on campus now that are going to help them, like Junior Colson was encouraging last year. But Raylen Wilson is seen as a guy that can come in and be – I know we always make the easy comparison to Devin Bush when it comes to guys who are fast. But, Devin Bush was a guy who could go sideline to sideline against pretty much any team in the country. And they haven't really had that type of linebacker since then. Again, I do think Devin Bush is a bit of an anomaly, so making comparisons is a bit unfair. But I do think the importance of Wilson is really, if anything, understated because if he were to come to Michigan and follow through with this commitment, he's a guy who could crack the lineup probably right away, at least have a chance at the 2 deep right away, right? So the importance is huge. Now, as far as him taking visits, it's not shocking. I mean, it's recruiting. And I feel like you and I have similar dialogue whenever we talk recruiting on the show, where I try to – it almost sounds like I'm making fun of it in a way, which is not what I'm doing. I'm just trying to make sense of it to the people at home that get caught up in it, that this is normal. I mean, again, I always try to compare this to real life for people. If you're working at a job or you have a job that you have committed to in college, maybe you're a senior and you got this internship in the summer and they've offered you a job beginning after graduation and you're all in for it. You get a couple other offers in between that year and you're like, hey, I'm going to interview. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that is completely okay. So from my perspective, it's not shocking to see a recruit take visits when he's been committed to a school for a while prior to the signing day or the early signing day, whatever you want to call it. So to me, not shocking. Worrisome? Sure. I mean, hey, it's Georgia and Florida. So by all means, Florida is every school, every program, whenever they hire a new coach, they have that honeymoon phase, especially in recruiting. And I think Billy Napier is seeing that at Florida. And then at Georgia, you're hot off a national championship. There's not much else that needs to be said there. You're easily the most momentum in the country right now, right? So I think that there's a bit of worry here for the right reasons, and I get it. You got to hang on to him. If you're Michigan, he's a difference maker, but not shocking to see him take visits.
Yeah, I would like myself in recruiting that guys would commit and then they would stay with their commitment and then they would go to National Signing Day and then it would just follow through. But if you follow this at all, you understand that it is a wild ride, that anything can happen, that this is not binding, that Michigan could move on, he can move on. There can be anything at the last second. You can get right up to signing day, and then you can say, well, wait a second, I want to go to the next signing day, and it could still be in there. So you buckle up, and you just hope at the finish line you end up working out. It's easy for me to say, but it's true. I hope it works out for Michigan. I hope it works out for Raylen Wilson, wherever he wants to go in the end. Right now, the two are attached because he says he's a verbal commitment. But you're right. It's Georgia. It's Florida. Yeah. I mean, if you're somebody that worries about recruiting, gets fingernails, it is worrisome. But they still have a chance, and it doesn't mean that he's not coming. It's just, puts it into a category of one that you want to monitor.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's just one of those situations that is going to be fluid. And, such is life in the world of recruiting. It's almost like you want to cue the song, Wouldn't It Be Nice, when you say things like that? Like if he just stayed committed and didn't do all the visits, right? Hey, we remember when Andrew Rappelya said that he wasn't going to take any visits upon his commitment to Michigan. And then sure enough, about a month or so later, he was committed to Penn State. So, that's just how this thing goes. Now, I think it's going to be interesting to see how Michigan handles this, because I know a lot of people on our board specifically have a bit of a pause when it comes to Michigan's, efforts, I guess you could say, in recruiting. It's not so much efforts. I just think that they don't like playing the old song and dance that a lot of these guys tend to do. I don't know if that's going to be the situation with Wilson necessarily, so don't think that correlates. But if this becomes a thing where he's taking visits and he's playing the hokey pokey, you might see this not work out the way you want it to. But really, it's all contingent upon what he feels, right? I think at this point in time, it's pretty simple. He just wants to take some visits. It's going to get blown out of proportion. It's the world of recruiting. So.
Is the senior editor of the Maize and Blue Review, Brandon Justice. Every day I have been saying something or other about name, image, and likeness. At the beginning, we heard from Notre Dame basketball coach Mike Bray. Let me play that again. Here's what he had to say at ACC media days about name, image, and likeness.
We shouldn't be complaining. We're overpaid. Like, we make a lot of money. And there's high risk and high reward. And I've tried to tell some of the guys on the road in April, like, hold up now. Like, we've been doing pretty good. I was supposed to be a high school gym teacher and coach.
Yeah, coaches, it's a good reminder. They're doing really well. So, the players getting a little bit here. Bryce saying, it's okay. Things are changing around a little bit. All right. Name, image, and likeness. Are you feeling anything positive as it might relate to the maize and blue?
Yeah, well, we saw Henschke's report on NIL, and if you want to read that in its entirety, you can head over to the Den, newly named. Nice and easy flow there. And I think that was a huge positive step in the right direction for Michigan. And we've been talking about this since, last fall. You and I went back and forth about what were, I guess, more so like speculation as to what was going to happen. And I've said from the jump, that Michigan was really crossing its T's and dotting its I's and ironing out the edges on what this whole NIL thing was going to be. That's who Michigan is. It's who they've always been. They were never going to jump into this thing and think they would land or hope they would land feet first. They want to make sure they're going to land feet first, right? They did not want to dive into this thing, nosedive into it, and find out the negative side of it, like getting Quinn Ewers over $1 million and then losing him 3 months later, right? They didn't want to find out those things. They wanted to find them out and then do them, which is commonplace for this program. It's how they've always been in the athletic program in general. It's how they've handled everything. So when this whole NIL thing happened, that was really what my thought process was that this was going to be a drawn out, calculated process. In the end, I was heavily weighing towards it being a advantageous thing for Michigan because of its alumni network, because of the passion that alumni network has for athletics. And let's be honest, the money that they have is absurd. It's the number one public university in the country or whatever, maybe number 2 now. I don't know. I don't keep up with those things. Regardless, there's a ton of money within the University of Michigan. We all know that. That's not a secret. And there's a ton of passion for athletics, especially football and especially basketball. So this was inevitable, right? And what this turns out to be was inevitable. Josh seems to have a strong source on this, and I believe what he reports. And so to me, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be not only, important for the program in recruiting and important for them with, just players in general. It's also going to help these kids out, man. Like, how many times do we have to have the discussion about how terrible it is to be a student athlete sometimes for some of these kids, especially for like the 6th year guys and all of that, right? Like, a lot of them are working jobs. I remember back when Karan Higdon was a father who was also working and also playing running back for Michigan. And then when he wanted to skip the bowl game to get ready for the draft, it was like the end of the world. Well, maybe now these guys play their bowl games because they're making enough money to make means. I don't know. That's kind of like stretching it out, at speculating too much at that point. But regardless, like, this is all good. I think Frey makes a great point. Like, all of these coaches, look at their degrees for the most part. Or look at their experience for the most part. They're probably all supposed to be teachers. Or like for the most part, like they're probably mostly all supposed to be in that kind of position. So I think it's funny when guys get on stage, like coaches, and I can't name drop, but I think it's funny when guys get on stage or on the podium, and they just cashed in a $6 million annual check to coach a sport, and they have something to say about how NIL is the wild, wild west. Well, it's not the wild, wild west. It's called fair wage. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago when Michigan, you would look at their facilities, and we're going to talk some baseball coming up, and softball is great. I used to go over to that little, that little area, and the softball field wasn't anything dynamic, neither the baseball, and football. It was a great stadium and everything, but it didn't have any enclosed seating. And Chrysler, it was just drab. It was called the Mausoleum, but. Then they went into this modern era where they had the whatever it was, brick program and everything else. But the Michigan Stadium, the facility wise, everything, like, it is state of the art, and it is unmatched with anybody in the country. It doesn't matter if you like Michigan or not. I mean, it's just it's awesome. And the same thing goes with all the facilities. That's the arms race. That's why if you're a Michigan fan, I think you should feel pretty good, because if it comes down to, and I know some people just want to see the, big time donors give the money up, or boosters, but it might end up falling back to some fans and spread across. But I think Michigan fans, you mentioned the passion. I think that they would be just like some kind of brick program to get the stadium going, if it meant to keep the football program and keep that thing competitive with the rest of the teams in the country. The thing that I'm thinking about today is that before name, image, and likeness, we know teams were rogue and they would bend any rule and they would pay. And, I always pictured, some guy in a suit with cash or a briefcase or something, or going to see a kid's uncle, or going to see his pastor, and funneling the money. That felt a little dubious to me, Brandon. Mm-hmm. Now it doesn't seem quite so dubious. The distinction seems to be like, I could say, hey, if you come to our university, I will give you, $1 million. And the other side, the clean side right now is, hey, if you come to our university, you can make $1 million. That doesn't seem all that dubious to me. It seems like a really close, part here, that it's just, so the people that are saying, oh, the cheaters are going to continue to cheat and all that, it doesn't seem as much like you're some rogue cheater, even if you are pay to play right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a fine line in between those two things. And we'll put it this way. All right. If what was going on before NIL was, legalized, or whatever you want to call it, before NIL was introduced, if what was going on before that wasn't addressed to the level it should have been addressed, it's not going to be addressed now. Like, this is where we're at. Are they going to come up with guidelines? Yeah. Are they going to change some things, iron some things out? Sure. But this is what it's going to be. And I think Michigan's like, all right, this is what it's going to be. We're not going to sit here and watch the party. We're going to figure out how we can get involved with it. Now, again, it was going to be a drawn out, calculated process. It has been. I think that we're getting to that point now where it's going to happen. And we always talk about, when we talked about NIL, we talk about Schlissel, right? Schlissel's not there anymore. Not as much of a worry for the university now to address these NIL things. I think Harbaugh feels like he's in a better place now in getting things ready for NIL. And if you don't think, now I know there's a lot of people out there who like to speculate, oh, well, Jim Harbaugh doesn't like NIL. I don't care if Jim Harbaugh doesn't like NIL, loves NIL, hates NIL. It's a recipe for success right now in recruiting. It's a recipe for success and sustainability within your program. Jim Harbaugh is interested in success in both of those things. So he's going to be interested in NIL. And so that's where I'm at. But I see we're getting to the good part of this all with the image.
Acuna's interested in NIL.
Oh, you can hear him from that far? I didn't know. Of course, he's a loud mouth.
There's a photo up on the screen here on YouTube or wherever you're watching this. If you're just listening on the podcast, a couple of nights ago, my a friend, she sent me a picture from the Michigan suite with the lights on, and it was a great photo. I saved it and I threw it up there because I knew, looking at the Den, as you referenced earlier, which we're going to tell you more about in a minute or two, that you were at Ray Fisher Stadium yesterday as we take a look in there. And Michigan's back at it tonight at 6:00, and they still have a couple dates. You talk about that great weather, and I was talking about being a fair weather fan. A lot of times that kept me on the outside looking in when it came down to Michigan baseball. There were a couple games I broadcast back in the day. Winter boots, wool, it was terrible outside there. You love baseball, but not calling it. And it probably was only like 40 degrees, but you've still got a game against Michigan State coming up. And then a series on May 19th, 20th, and 21st against Rutgers. So still a chance to get down there. What about Ray Fisher and watching a little baseball? What was it like yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the stadium itself, I mean, I love Fish. I think it's a nice setup there. And it was my first time in the press box there, and I was impressed with that too. Just, it still has you'll see a lot of the same sort of designs, I guess you could say, that you would see, just minimized, that you would see at Chrysler and at the stadium. Same kind of deal. It's a U of M athletic facility, so it's got that same vibe to it. But the stadium itself is great. There's not a bad seat. The seating is good. The backdrop is gorgeous, I think, because you've got Chrysler and Michigan Stadium in right center, and then you've got the softball stadium in left center and center, and then you've got the big brick wall in left field, which I think is beautiful, and I love the brick wall in left field. It's probably my favorite part about the park itself. And I'm always a fan of turf, not because of like true game feel. Like in a perfect world, everybody has dirt, but it's Michigan. It's often cold for the bulk of the season. It's raining. It rained every day in April, seemingly, based on all the cancellations we had for our team. So having turf is a must. It's integral. I mean, I know that Michigan State doesn't have theirs because of the ag school and all of that, so I understand it. But I'm a fan of everything that Fish has for the most part. Now, as far as the game, I mean, we can dive into the team. It might be a bit of a negative talk because this is just, well, Dennis, it's not the College World Series team. And, people don't, Acuna, sir, people don't pay much attention to the baseball team from a day-to-day basis. So those who loosely pay attention to it think that, Michigan is going to be a year in, year out contender, not only in the Big Ten, but also in the NCAA tournament. That's just not the case this year. There's actually a pretty strong chance. I shouldn't say strong chance. There is a chance that they don't make the Big Ten tournament. They've got 7 games left in conference. They have a series against Maryland this weekend, who's in first place right now in the Big Ten. They have a one-off midweek game against Michigan State, and then they have a series against Rutgers at home, and Rutgers is in second place in the Big Ten. And both of those teams, Maryland is 14th in the RPI, which is excellent, and far away the best team in the Big Ten right now, statistically. And then Rutgers is 46th in the RPI. Michigan is somewhere underneath 100 right now. I think they're like 101st or 103rd in the RPI. So they cannot make the tournament right now in the NCAAs. They would make the Big Ten tournament as of right now, but you have to be somewhere in between 14 and 13 or 13 and 14 to make that tournament. And with 7 games left and 6 of them being against the first and second place teams in the conference, they've got a tall order ahead of them, especially given both of those teams are pretty offensive and Michigan has the worst pitching staff it's had in years. As we know, Chris Fetter went to the Tigers a couple of years ago and he was replaced by Steve Merriman, who is in his second year. Merriman is similar to Fetter in a lot of ways, aligns with him with, how they use technology, just their approach to how to teach kids to use their body, in their motions to throw, rather than focusing on, some of the more like mechanical strike throwing things. And I feel like right now, Michigan is, their walks right now are like over 200th in the country. Their earned run average is over, I think it's like 150th, 200th in the country. The home runs allowed is really low. The walks are really, really low. I think the walks are like 250th. So, as a pitching staff, they're doing their team no favors. Their ERA is over 6, and they're averaging 10.5 hits allowed per game. And it didn't get any better last night because they lost 10-3 to Xavier to complete Xavier's season sweep of Michigan, which was 2 games. They went to Xavier earlier in the year and then, hosted Xavier last night. So really this team has a clear identity problem. Like usually you're looking at a team and you're like, okay, what's going wrong? And usually it's a mix. The offense is pretty good for Michigan. They ranked top 100 in most offensive categories, and they're close to the top 50 in a couple of them as well. And it's a pretty deep lineup, like 1 to 9. Those guys can hit, and they've got power like Joe Stewart and Tito Flores and Clark Elliott. Like those are 3 big power bats for them that do a lot for them in the middle of their order. At the bottom of their order, they've got some talent too. So I feel like this team offensively is doing what it needs to do to win. Not last night, only 2 extra base hits last night. So not last night, but in various other games. Like, they beat Ohio State 16-13. Like that says everything you need to know about what this team has done on both sides of the ball. So they're super young with their arms. They put 1 freshman in last night and had to rely on him for 2 innings of relief because they have 5 games this week. And they've relied on a lot of young arms in the freshman and sophomore class as well throughout the year, and it's just not working for them. I don't know if there's been talks about this on the board. I don't know if this is a pitching coach thing. Fetter's an anomaly. You're never going to replace Fetter, so stop trying to pretend that we're going to do that. I think Merriman is good, and he's been at Michigan before, so he has roots here and knows how to connect and all of that. But through 2 years, there's question marks, and I think he deserves another year, no doubt, because I think he deserves a more experienced staff. He doesn't really have that right now. So we'll see. But this is definitely a down year for this program. And, Eric Bakich has had the anomaly of a College World Series appearance in the modern era for Michigan baseball. These past 2 seasons have been tough, especially this year because, they've got to win at least 4 out of these next 7 to get into the Big Ten tournament. And if they do win 4 out of these next, you'd like to win 5 to really like solidify yourself. But if you win 4 and you get a couple losses from like Iowa or Indiana or Illinois or Purdue, who are kind of like the teams floating around them right now in the conference, then you'll probably find your way in the tournament. But, it's not a guarantee right now. And the team is certainly going to need a win tonight against Wright State to just kind of right this ship because they've allowed more than 8 runs in 8 out of their last 10 games. And I think of those 10, I think they've only won 3 or 4. So it's a rough stretch right now. And now they're facing the biggest gauntlet of their season, having to face those number 1 and number 2 teams to determine if they're going to make it. And that's just, it does not look good right now.
Yeah, 3 years ago was so awesome. It did raise the bar and had everybody focusing in on Michigan baseball. It goes back to our conversation a little bit earlier. I do think that Michigan gets hurt because of when they are playing these games. It's hard to get the best players in the country to come to Ann Arbor and say, okay, we're going to start playing games. It's going to be 35 degrees outside. Let's go. And I'll get out there. That could be tough. A lot of these guys are like, no, I'll go to Arizona State and I'll play baseball there. I wanted to ask you, it sounds like the inverse of what's going on with the big club to the east and the Tigers. I was watching that doubleheader yesterday, and I know you do some coaching. And as I was watching the game and I was watching Javier Baez swing and, twist himself around and then watch him in the field going down to one knee, bouncing around, throwing the ball over, I was saying, I got to ask Justice what he tells these youngsters when they're watching Javier Baez bat and field. You just say, don't do anything that Baez. You guys aren't Javier Baez. How do you teach your guys when they're watching somebody like Baez swing out of his shoes and corkscrew and then do what he does in the field?
Well, I think what you can learn from Baez, like from a, if you're trying to make like a reference to Baez as a coach to a player and, the youth age. So for those who don't know, like I do varsity at a high school. So I'm working with mostly sophomores, juniors, seniors, got a couple freshmen too. And anytime we're trying to relate with the pros, we do a lot of that. We watch a lot of Bryce Harper. Like he's a really good reference point for me, which sounds funny to most people who maybe like loosely pay attention to baseball or watch the games, but don't really like dive into it. Bryce Harper's probably one of the more generational hitters of all time. And his ability to adjust in counts is really easy for me to connect with the kids because it's something that is next level. But it's also not like it's also kind of simple if you just learn it. Right. So with Javi, it's interesting because you look at Javi, he doesn't do a whole lot of things right at the plate. Like he's usually, so his WAR, which is win above's replacement, which is like one of the better analytics to look at in baseball. His WAR is one of the best, like one of the best. So like when they sign him and you look at that, like you were happy with the contract, the deal, and all of it. At the plate, there's some things that look funky to the naked eye, but when you dive into it, it's really not bad. Javi takes hacks really early in the count, which is good. A 6-4-3 chart is something that I look at a lot, and it basically tells a story of what an average, the average is per count. 0-0, 1-0, 2-0, 3-1, 2-1. Those are the most successful hitting counts, right? Yeah. And so Javi gets super aggressive in those kind of counts. And people get upset because he does swing out of his shoes in those counts. But he's usually sitting on something. And when he gets it, he feels like he's in a good position to smash it, right? So even 0-0, he has that sort of approach. And I don't have like the exact numbers, but more times than not, Javi's extra base hits and home runs are usually earlier in the count, I would assume, based on just common trends in baseball. So the problem is when he gets later in counts and he gets into those 3-2, 2-2, 1-2, it doesn't change as much as it needs to, probably. The one thing Bryce Harper does really well is he changes his load and his timing. So like his leg kick will get really short when it's like a 1-2, 2-2 type of deal, 3-2 even. And it'll be really huge, a really huge leg kick and create a lot of torque in it when he's in like more of an advantageous count. So the one thing that I would see from Javi and recommend to the kids is like his passion for the game. Like that's unmatched. Like he plays with a ton of energy. His energy is infectious. So he really is a big clubhouse guy, which is funny because a lot of the casuals like to think that he's not that, but he's he's an energy plug. He's an energizer bunny. And not only that, but, he leads really well by example because he makes plays, right? He's an electric shortstop. So you can't really like embody what he does as a player to kids from downriver. Like it's just not going to happen. But you can certainly watch him play the game and be like, if we could play with half of the passion that Javi Baez has, like our energy output would be incredible. Like incredible. So yeah, that's the one thing I would say from Javi is like just how he plays the game with the energy he plays it is unmatched.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun just for somebody.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Back and watching him. All right, we've got one other thing to address, one or two more things. Caleb Houstan. So this is interesting. A tweet from Jeremy Woo. The news comes out yesterday that Caleb has turned down an invitation to go to the NBA Combine. So you hear that, you say, "Oh, that's great news. That's great news. He's coming back to Michigan if you want him to come back to Michigan." Woo saying that there's then speculation around the NBA that he may have a guarantee somewhere in the draft, although Woo says he's not reporting any kind of guarantee. So this is a little bit of a different twist here. You thought that Houstan would go out there to see how he stacked up and if he would get a chance, but it always, you hear it only takes one team to give you the little, hey, we got you. And maybe that's the case with Caleb Houstan, that a team is saying, we're going to pick you. Don't even worry about going to the Combine. How do you read this latest news and this twist with Caleb Houstan?
Well, if you look at the Combine and who's in it, I mean, there's like 4 of the top 5 guys are going to it. And plenty of the first round guys are going to it. So to me, it would make no sense to assume that just because he's not going to the Combine that he has some sort of guarantee and he can just sit out the Combine. Like, I just think that's silly. If I'm Caleb Houstan, like, okay, Caleb Houstan first of all, he is not a guaranteed first round guy by any stretch of the imagination. He's probably a second round guy at best at this point, right? At least that's what I would assume. However, to me, it's like if you have a guarantee from a team, that tells me someone's interested in you, and that if you're going to the Combine, you're going to maximize your potential to get drafted even earlier than that. Because I know for a fact it's not the number 1 pick, right? Like we can assume that safely, I believe, right? So
yes,
it's like what kind of speculation are we coming up with at that point if we're saying that because he's not getting a Combine invite, or I'm sorry, if he turned down a Combine invite, that he did it because he has a guarantee from a different team. So there's one of two things there, Dennis. Either one, that's not true, and Caleb Houston's going to come back to Michigan, and that's it. And the other side of it is Caleb Houstan has a really bad agent. Don't know which one it is. I guess we'll find out. But that's my thoughts on it. Is like it would be asinine to do that. That would make no sense. Because if you have a team interested in you and you're not, like, he's a prospect that is not guaranteed to get drafted. So if you have a team making some sort of promise to you, wouldn't you want to maximize your list? Because how many times have teams promised things and not followed through with them? Probably quite a bit. So either Caleb Houston's coming back to Michigan or his agent is going to be jobless soon, because that is not the advice that I would assume you would get as an NBA draft prospect.
Feels risky to me. If you were a lock to go in the lottery and you just said, okay, I'm good. I know I'm going to get a guaranteed deal. I don't need to work out. It can only hurt me. I would think it would only help him. It would be a surprise to me that a team would guarantee. But there's guys that have gone, and if he goes and he gets a guarantee, well, good for him. I know there's going to be a lot of Michigan fans, like if he goes to the draft, they're going to say, good, he sucked last year, or, well, he was a disappointment last year, good riddance. There's also a chance that he could come back and he could find that stroke, and he gets a year under his belt with that experience and some strength, and he comes back and he's a real asset for Michigan. I think that latter part is a pretty good bet. So if I was a Michigan fan, I would be hoping that he does come back to the Wolverines. That's how I see it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I feel like, again, I know that they're not supposed to have an agent right now, but if you don't think he has some sort of advisor, like, that's just silly. I think you're right in all accounts, and I think most of us see eye to eye on this. Like, it wouldn't make any sense for this to happen. And if it does, then, like, I don't know. I guess this is just a case of betting on yourself, which is fine, I guess, but it seems awfully risky, to say the least.
Well, he might say I might be the next Jordan Poole, but there's that could be the one-off. You're talking about one-offs, but everybody thinks they are the next Jordan Poole. I don't think that he's the next Jordan Poole, or I'm the next Jordan Poole. I know that for sure. I do want to remind everyone. You heard Justice a little bit earlier talking about the Den. That is the posting board on the Maize and Blue Review. Night and day, we're there. We're talking about the things that we talk about here all day long. At any point during the night, things break early in the morning, late at night. Go to michigan.rivals.com to subscribe there. We'd love to see you in there. It makes a great gift for the Michigan fan in your life. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe there. We've got things going on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now TikTok that I am running. So I've got 6 videos up there. It's a very soft start there for TikTok, but it is available. So go on there, be one of the first to follow the Maize and Blue Review at TikTok. We're hoping to see Justice on there soon.
Yes, I will. I'll have to talk to the youth and get a bit of information on how to do these things, but I will figure out the talk.
There you go.
Big thing.
It's I was watching the Leafs and the Lightning in the Stanley Cup playoffs last night, and they went to the Austin Matthews, and on the side of the Leafs helmet, they have advertising, and it said TikTok. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I saw that on the ice the other night in a playoff game. There was a TikTok right next to the goal. I don't know which game it was. My roommate's a big hockey guy, so we've been watching a lot of it during the playoffs, and I noticed the TikTok next to the net, and I was taken back. I was like, whoa.
TikTok is on its way, definitely. So check that out. All right, Brandon, it is always great to talk with you. Can't wait to do it again. And I know what the issue is. I had a button on here that I had not pushed, so I apologize for that. But just as we were coming on, I was able to push the button, so I feel good about it.
Hey, not always there when you call, but you're always on time.
I like it. Sounds like a song. All right, we'll talk with you later.
Appreciate it. Take it easy.
There he is. Thanks for watching.